Darth Vader was the supreme commander of the Imperial military. He outranked every single person in the Empire besides the Emperor himself. By every metric, he should have been the single most feared individual in the entire Imperial hierarchy. Yet, strangely, many Imperial officers treated him with open disdain. They questioned him, they complained about him, some even talked back to him as if he were just another cog in the machine that Palpatine had built. And the fascinating truth is that this disrespect was not simple arrogance. It was a complex and a multi-layered phenomenon created by rumor, fear, political aspiration, and the very structure of the Empire that had been inspired by the Sith way. This is why so many Imperial officers thought that they could disrespect Darth Vader, and why they were always incorrect. Greetings, lore junkies, and welcome back to the archives. Because Darth Vader was the only leash the Emperor ever held with two hands, he was also the hammer that these officers pretended did not exist until it fell upon them. In this video, we will explore exactly why the most feared man in the galaxy was frequently challenged by those who should have been kneeling in his presence. The first reason is fascinating. Unaware of Vader's rank and the grievous rumor, many officers in the early days simply did not understand Vader's true authority. The Empire expanded at a rate unprecedented in galactic history, and administrative ranks were constantly shifting. Most officers believed that Vader was a ceremonial enforcer, a relic from the war who answered only to the Emperor in personal matters rather than military ones. Once news spread that Vader actually held the highest military rank possible, the rumors began. A strange belief moved through the Imperial ranks that Vader was not a man at all. Officers whispered that he was once a version of General Grievous, a prototype, a military experiment, a walking, talking battle droid with human-shaped armor. If Vader was a droid, then he was not a political threat. He was not a career rival. He was not someone who could rise or fall in the hierarchy. He was simply a tool. And tools can be talked back to. Tools cannot retaliate. Tools do not have ambition. These rumors removed Vader from the web of Imperial politics and framed him as something lesser than a real human commander. It emboldened certain officers to treat him as a weapon rather than as a superior. They learned quickly that he was neither, though. The next major reason Imperial officers resented Vader had nothing to do with his rank whatsoever. It had everything to do with an unseen authority. Vader had the power to cripple entire military operations with a single order, projects that had been in development for years, supply chains that had taken months to build, campaigns that required massive funds, manpower, and political support. Vader could instantly reroute them for a single purpose, and that purpose was a very unpopular one in the early days of the Empire: the hunt for surviving Jedi. To the Imperial officer corps, this was infuriating. They believed the Jedi were defeated and now irrelevant. They believed the Empire faced newer and far more dangerous threats: pirates, separatist remnants, rebel cells, border skirmishes, political movement. But Vader didn't care. If a rumor surfaced about a surviving Jedi, the entire Imperial war machine could be halted overnight at his single command. Officers would lose countless men, ships, and months of progress only for Vader to present one corpse at the end of the operation. In their eyes, he was wasting the Empire's precious resources. He was crippling them in their early era, and he was obsessed with an enemy that no longer mattered. Their resentment grew, their disrespect surfaced, and Vader crushed both. But even this paled in comparison to the resentment that they harbored for another reason. In the Imperial hierarchy, nothing mattered more than proximity to the Emperor. His approval shaped entire sectors. His moods redirected fleets. His slightest interest could elevate an officer's career overnight to unprecedented rank. Most members of the military and the bureaucracy spent their entire lives attempting to get even a single message or a sentence to the Emperor, for him even to acknowledge them. But Vader did not have to try. He already stood at the Emperor's side. That alone created deep tension. Officers could maneuver, negotiate, or manipulate their peers, but Vader was unreachable. He received orders directly from Palpatine, stepped into private audiences without an explanation, and operated outside the traditional chain of command. This made him unpredictable, and to ambitious officers, deeply frustrating. To make matters worse, no one fully understood what Palpatine saw in him either. Their relationship did not resemble that of a master and a subordinate oftentimes. Some believed it resembled more of a partnership. Others thought Vader served as the Emperor's personal watchdog. Others imagined a kind of strange loyalty that only the two of them understood. Whatever the truth was, it pushed Vader far beyond the reach of political influence. And this inspired a resentment, Ambition in the Empire was expected. Hunger for power was considered healthy. Many officers believed that undermining Vader, or confronting him openly, could place them closer to the Emperor's inner circle. They believed he could be challenged the same way they challenged admirals and moffs. But they did not realize that they were challenging the single most dangerous being that the Emperor had ever created. Grand Moff Tarkin was the only major figure in the Empire who could match Vader in authority without the Force. Tarkin shaped doctrine, he defined the Imperial strategy, and he had given the Empire its cold political identity. When he and Vader eventually forged a working respect, officers took note. Tarkin recognized Vader's abilities and treated him accordingly. This made him far more difficult for others to dismiss him now. But this stability created by Tarkin began to erode after his death on the first Death Star. Whispers spread through the fleet, many of them inaccurate and shaped by fear. A surprising number of officers blamed Vader for the disaster, believing that he had survived due to negligence or betrayal. And without Tarkin alive to publicly affirm Vader's importance now, and with the shock of such a catastrophic loss hovering over the Empire, Vader's aura of unquestioning authority weakened. At the same time, knowledge of the Force had also faded dramatically. Many young officers had never seen a Jedi in their lifetime. They had grown up hearing Imperial propaganda claiming that the Jedi were extinct, misguided, and mythical. Without first-hand experience, the Force became an old story rather than a tangible reality. To them, Vader's power was exaggerated legend unless demonstrated directly to them. And when those doubts finally reached his presence, the officers discovered that his power was not a myth, and he demonstrated it. By the final years of the Empire, the average officer had no understanding of the Force whatsoever. They believed it was a cultural superstition, something ancient, something irrelevant to modern warfare. This ignorance emboldened them, and without the context of Jedi history, they could not grasp what Vader truly represented. But here's the kicker. The Empire was built to encourage this arrogance and this conflict naturally. The Empire itself was designed to create the exact kind of behavior that infuriated Vader. It rewarded ambition, it encouraged rivalry, it fostered an environment where officers believed that power belonged to those bold enough to seize it. This culture existed long before any officer ever stepped into a room with Vader, because the ideological foundation of the Empire was built on the Tarkin doctrine, shaped by the Sith philosophy that pulsed silently through every institution. Tarkin believed that order was achieved not through fairness, but through fear. His doctrine stated that the controlled application of terror was the most efficient path to stability. Entire systems needed to believe that resistance was pointless. Entire populations needed to believe that their lives depended on obedience. This doctrine is not a footnote. It is the backbone of the Imperial policy. It dictated how governors ruled, how officers behaved, and how the soldiers were trained. It is under this framework, ambition became a virtue. Officers were taught that success came from outmaneuvering one another. There were no moral values guiding military. There was only survival, and there was only advancement. This naturally encouraged the cutthroat mentality where every person believed that they were more important than the last. In the eyes of most Imperial officers, Vader was simply another obstacle for their chosen path and their destiny. And this culture perfectly aligned with the dark side. The Sith do not need to speak for every officer individually. Their ideology flowed through the Empire. Palpatine engineered a government where the dark side's core beliefs were embedded into its very system, enabling the pride, hunger, and greed of officers. The belief that you were stronger than the person above you. These qualities shaped individuals who had never touched the Force, yet were unconsciously behaving exactly as the dark side wanted. It created an illusion of invincibility among the officers. They saw their rank, their authority, and the weight of the war machine behind them, and they believed themselves untouchable. They believed they could debate Vader the way that they debated the admirals. They believed they could question without consequence. They believed the Emperor would value their voice over Vader's. Normal arrogance was not the flaw on the surface. It is the system that they served. Palpatine wanted them arrogant and hungry, but they never realized that the dark side only ever encourages confidence to later punish it. Officers walked into rooms with Vader thinking that the Empire made them powerful. They did not realize that the Empire was built to reveal who deserved to stand in its shadow and who did not. And Darth Vader gladly ended all of those delusions. When we step outside the lore and look at the story from our perspective as fans, it's easy to wonder why anyone in the Empire would ever dare challenge Darth Vader. We know what he's capable of. We know the scale of his power and the breadth of his authority. It feels absurd that any officer would even raise a voice in his presence. But when we shift the frame and look at Vader through the eyes of the officers, the picture is far more understandable. Most of them genuinely believed that he may not even be human. To them, he could have been a machine built by Palpatine, nothing more than a refined version of General Grievous. He was looked at as a tool, not a leader. Many believed he had no personal identity whatsoever, no true claim to any authority. Others saw him as a disruption to the real work of the Empire. He diverted fleets, he dismantled long-term projects, he redirected manpower from operations that they had spent their entire lives attempting to perfect. With a few words, he could erase the careers and achievements of officers who had dedicated their lives to Imperial service. And the irony is that the Empire itself conditioned them to think like this. They served a system that glorified ambition, encouraged that rivalry, and rewarded those who reached for power. They were jealous of Vader's proximity to Palpatine because they believed political closeness was the only true strength in the galaxy. They believed that if they challenged him and somehow succeeded, they would rise higher. They believed they understood the nature of power. But Vader wielded something they could not comprehend. To them, he was a political obstacle. To us, and to the truth of the lore, he was a force of nature. Darth Vader was not shaped by the bureaucracy. He was shaped by the dark side. They thought they were confronting a man who stood between them and influence. In reality, they were stepping into the path of a being who answered to a power older and greater than the Empire itself. And that is why their defiance was never a true challenge. It was only a misunderstanding, one that Vader corrected with absolute finality every single time. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on the disrespect that the officers regularly showed to Lord Vader? Thank you so much for visiting the archives here today, and as always, may the Force be with you.